Welcome to another episode of Conservative Talk Chicago. I'm your host, Jack Novak. Along with my team, we post weekly episodes to review the most important political issues without the liberal bias of mainstream media. If you're as frustrated as we and feel that most mainstream news is disingenuous, then welcome to Conservative Talk Chicago. We welcome your questions, concerns, and ideas. Please send them by email to talktome@conservativetalkchicago.com. There appears to be a strategy in play to impede Sheriff James Mendrick's race for governor. If you've been attending or watching the various Republican governor candidate forums and segments posted on social media platforms and YouTube channels, you would witness James Mendrick clearly dominating. And did you see the chatter after Jim Mendrick's Fox 32 debate coverage? Jim really made an impact with the public. His vitality is contagious, and it is apparent he is the only candidate who could win a showdown against JB. This is what makes what I observed distressing. Some recent public opinion polls don't appear to reflect the energy and the opinion shared by many Republicans. It's almost as if those published polls are purposely not reflective of true public opinion. Instead, the polls appear to be misleading and an attempt to misinform and influence voters. And fair and unbiased polls are conducted by companies and organizations that are independent of any candidates. There should not be a financial relationship between either the company, its founders and employees, and any candidate that could benefit from a biased poll. The problem is that polls in general are suspect, as they are not very transparent. They are defined by hidden elements that, if misapplied, raise serious concerns about its credibility, including the very real possibility of being purposely engineered to discredit opponents. This is why transparency is so important. When there is little to no transparency, polls need to be considered suspect and then ignored. You might ask, why would someone or some organization actually spend the time and money to twist the facts by engineering and publishing a biased poll? Well, there are voters who will not bother to go to the polls and vote if they believe that their candidate doesn't stand a chance. And there are also some voters who always back the candidate with the greatest polling numbers. After all, who doesn't want to back a winner? That's Psychology 101, and just two reasons to misinform the public with false polls. And I can think of more than one candidate who would benefit. Why, JB, of course, especially if he wanted to cherry-pick his opponents and didn't want to take on Sheriff James Mendrick in the general. After all, who has stood up to JB during the COVID crisis and fought against the Safety Act? Remember when JB ordered the county sheriffs to target citizens with guns or small businesses who wouldn't shut down during COVID? Sheriff Mendrick stood up to him and didn't back down. We know JB has the money and power to influence. I wouldn't put it past him to try indirectly influencing the media and pollsters to influence the Republican primary. That way he can run against a candidate during the general election campaign that he feels he can bully and dominate. And do you know how easy it would be to engineer a poll to manipulate the truth? There are many aspects that can be manipulated to favor or disfavor a specific candidate. The most important are the specific elements that make up the questions and the details that define the population to query. What elements and type of details, you might ask? Well, for starters, the questions asked and how they were phrased. Verbiage is very important, and a vague question could easily be designed to favor a specific candidate. And details, such as how the data was collected, the when and where as well. The locale where the data was collected is very important, as is the time of day, whether a weekday or weekend, rush hour, end of day, etc. And very critical is the universe, the demographic targeted. For example, were the interviewees underage, dead, comatose, Democrats, etc.? I'm only joking, but you get my point. Finally, the population size interviewed is extremely important for accuracy. According to most professional polling firms, a poll sample of 400 is what you'd expect to survey a congressional district, but is not suitable for a state race in a state the size of Illinois. A population size of 500 is considered the absolute bare minimum to survey for an Illinois statewide race, but it would have a significant error. For example, for accuracy, most polling companies prefer a universe of 800 to accurately poll a state the size of Illinois. A statewide poll conducted that surveyed a population of 400 likely voters would have a margin of error of plus or minus 5.8%. That's a 11.6% spread, which is a very wide margin of error. So with this understanding of how polls work, I have to ask the questions. Are we to trust the results of any poll published without transparency? And are we to trust any poll if the results are suspect? I wish I could say with confidence that polls were not designed to attempt to mislead and influence the voting public. Polls should not be designed to influence voters to vote against a viable candidate who is definitely the right person for the job, a person who could return Illinois to prosperity and has the only chance of defeating Pritzker. If we're serious about winning in November, our primary voters need to disregard polls that are inaccurate and lack the transparency to enable objective validation. To take back our state, Republicans from across the state must rally behind the candidate with the strongest path to victory and ignore the polls. Any poll released that lacks transparency should raise concerns, and it should be assumed it was generated with the purpose to unduly and unfairly influence and not to move the Republican cause forward. Thank you for listening.